You are listening to Radiant Creators, a collaborative project composed of people whose passion, purpose, and dedication requires forging their own unique path of empowerment and livelihood. A Radiant Creator isn't making a living, they are living.
Yeah, this is David DuByne, Adapt 2030. Definitely one of the headliners
Good
of the
afternoon.
show. Yes.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody wants to hear you say it. It's not you.
It's not CO2, it's the sun.
Yeah.
I could almost finish your sentence.
You know. So, I'm looking at my phone. This is where my notes are. Usually I print them.
But there was so much to talk about, too, because LeakCon, everybody who was presenting from... I just came out, I watched Robert Felix, and he was explaining about magnetic reversals and evolutionary leaps, because our magnetic pole right now going through the excursions, but then that wrapped right into diamonds, talk about, the Carolina Bays and different, what they thought were plasma discharge on the surface, and then, we got Christian, Ice Age Farmer up there, he's talking about the solutions for farming and the way that things are being covered in the media, and D'Souza as well, showing us what looks like these incredibly crazy energy weapons coming down. I was never ever convinced of direct energy weapons, for a lot of these things that were going out with the fire here, something this. I was never a believer. Never, until I saw those videos. Now I'm shocked. I can't even describe to you what I saw here that has just kind of changed my reality.
Yeah. And the nice thing about being here is a lot of, oftentimes, conflicting views on how things happen. But
good to disagree.
But people are actually talking without needing to be right. Like, This is where I'm coming from. I think this. Oh, I think this. It conflicts. What's wrong with that? So it's been a place where eccentric people who have strong opinions can actually relax and not be afraid of being attacked physically,
or mentally, or verbally,
or by the government, as far as we know.
Yeah, because that's one thing I did notice. We can all agree to disagree, and that's the best thing, because filling in pieces of the puzzle that I don't see, they don't see, you don't see. Whoever you talk to seems to have this little nugget. It's almost a symbiotic relationship of somebody seems to have always the missing piece, like a puzzle that you're looking for. You're going to find somebody here that'll at least add a little something to maybe fill in a blank spot on the whole tapestry. It's pretty interesting. Same thing happened to me in Alternative View 10 over in London. Ian R. Crane's symposium, 2-day event out there too. There was a lot of information that overlaid on top and filled in an enormous amount of pieces. So these are great networking events to get your own information, talk to other people. Disagree, awesome. Agree, great. But it's an incredible conversation to have and just expand your horizons about what other people are thinking.
Yeah, and you can collect some new puzzle pieces. Something I like about the show LeakCon2019 this year was people have a neutral file. They can just collect data and they put it in a neutral file. And you can put all these puzzle pieces in your neutral file. And once in a while you kind of dump them out and you see how many fit together and you start to get a picture. And then some pieces, this doesn't fit anywhere. I'll just keep it for a little while longer. Maybe it'll fit somewhere one day. Maybe one day your puzzle is done. Probably won't be. But there's nothing wrong with just collecting ideas, collecting data, and just seeing how one day it either ends up being truthful and it works, or you just discard it one day, or maybe you just never figure out. Maybe you just, I don't know if this puzzle piece will ever fit, but it's interesting, so I'll keep it.
And I found that too. A lot of the data that I used to run through, I would keep the screen grabs from, and I'm so happy I did that, because one of the charts I was using in the presentation was the amount of ice that's gaining on Greenland is well above what was ever expected, or even it's the complete opposite of what was expected in the global warming, that the Greenland was going to melt and would raise sea levels. Well, we got extra hundreds of gigatons of new ice up on Greenland, and it's been above the 30-year average for the last 3 years in a row. And this year they took down that feed. You can't even get it at the Danish Meteorological Institute or the DMI. That feed's no longer available. So I'm happy I grabbed those preceding years, and then I stacked them up again, and then I put it next to this page does not exist. Like, why would they take that information down? Except 3 years of massive, incredible. It gained 20 gigatons last year of ice alone. That is massive on the gains, and then not available. So the research to keep, like that little nugget you just mentioned.
Yeah.
That was one from a long time ago. I didn't know how it connected to the others, but I'm glad I did keep those. Mm-hmm. And, Arctic ice, I'm doing the same thing. I'm routinely getting the Arctic ice measurements and the charts they put out, because who knows when those will go offline. You can start to see trends in the pictures. Visuals are way better to see the trend.
It's true. And it doesn't hurt to screenshot things. I have your little screenshot collection. I know I do. It's funny. I don't always trust the internet to be there the next day or that info to be there the next day. So if it's important to me, I just grab it and stick it in my big neutral file, my big creative projects file. Well, there's a philosopher that I like, Neil Kramer, neilkramer.com. He says that truth destroys the world you used to live in. And something I like about the people here is that they're not afraid to have the world they live in destroyed by the truth. And truth does destroy the world you live in. It messes you up, along with, magnetic pole reversals. They do a good job on your world too. But how has it come across to you, just people's boldness here to let their beliefs change, to let what they thought was truth all of a sudden not be truth? Everyone here has gone through a pilgrimage of a bit of their truth shattering.
Yeah, they all have the ideas here too, and that's it seems to be this comfort zone, because the standard thing I keep hearing is they can't talk to anybody else around them.
Yes.
Because everybody they talk to think they're eccentric, outlandish, crazy, tin hat, conspiracy type of person. But, go right back in it. ScopeX, geoengineering, everybody used to say, oh, your tin hat, your tin foil wearing hat, conspiracy, lines in the sky, whatever, geoengineering, you're cool. Now Harvard comes out and says we started our own perturbation experiment or geoengineering experiments called ScopeX. Harvard's doing it, Yale's doing it, and there's a host of other universities out there now with their own publicly claimed geoengineering projects. Well, hey, I thought that was the stuff of tin hat wearing people. But why is it that it seems a lot of this information coming out in conferences like this, speakers, it really becomes fact 10, 12, 15 years after that they're so far ahead of the curve. But sharing the ideas that are strong seems to be the thing that makes the comfort here. They might be incredibly disagreeing strong, but they're both able to talk without being afraid of being ridiculed or what the boss says, or in the work environment or at home, and family members that always snicker when they talk. It's a real safe place to exchange even heated ideas, because nobody's going to claim that that's stupid or that's ridiculous. Everybody's listening.
Yeah.
They're all listening. That's the thing. Everybody's listening.
Yeah, it's
not judging. There's a huge difference, right?
Yeah, it's I hate to use the word, it's a safe place.
Safe zone. No, give me my rabbit or whatever they got now. Yeah, what do they have in the safety zones?
Everybody gets a rabbit when they come to LeakCon.
And I don't want my third place. I want my 16th place participation trophy.
Yeah.
Without the big ribbon, I'm going to shed tears.
Because everybody's a winner here, because no one is. Well, especially beliefs that you hear or opinions or things that people have studied. One of the big ones here is extraterrestrials. Now, some believe that, most believe there's other life out there, but does it look like humans or not? Don't know. And do we have any real confirmation of it? Very hard to say. But some people here have the take on it that it's just humans, and no extraterrestrials are visiting us or ever have. And then some think, oh no, there's a few here in the audience from, the Pleiadians or something that are hanging out with us. So that conflicting belief, or I would just say just different ways of seeing things, it seems like a big deal. But here it just kind of gets glossed over, because everybody they know there's so much they don't know. Yeah. I love the intellectual curiosity.
That's one big thing, is everybody's voraciously diving into the new information. It is. It's mind candy for everybody thinking and listening and looking for new ideas to connect. Because everybody intuitively feels that something's different or changed or something is happening right now. So a lot of the people here are also looking for answers to try to fill in that. It just feels strange. Kind of sixth sense turned on. Like something's strange in today's world. Like everybody's feeling it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to put their finger on it. But this is, and they meet in the middle ground. Because one presenter was talking about Tesla technology and the anti-gravitics and different types of things are our own craft that were developed World War II that are still zooming around. But in the cover of military, they were leaving it as in, that they let the UFO thing go out to cover what the military aspects were. Mm-hmm. And then the other part over here is, it's completely extraterrestrial, from different star systems, jumping through galactical dimensional travel. But they're meeting in the middle of there's definitely something else out there and different, so let's explore the ideas together versus just fighting like they would. Global warming, global cooling, boom, you're just done. You closed your conversation.
Yeah. It's interesting how being in a situation now, like here at LeakCon for the weekend, where you have so many strong opinions, so much great research, but yet this strange lack of conflict, it makes me realize how polarized that humanity is right now. And along with many people realizing there's something not right, I'm led to LeakCon, Grand Solar Minimum. Grand Solar Minimum is a gateway drug, as you put it, to all kinds of expansive ways of thinking also. And it leads you in many, many different places. But everybody was led here on a certain pilgrimage, a certain curiosity. And I'm just amazed to see curiosity, exploring new ideas, adding to your puzzle pieces, in an environment where people aren't fighting each other. It's weird. This makes me realize how maybe traumatized I am by diverse ideas are so not allowed right now. They aren't. There's like the mainstream take on everything, and outside of that, you're not really even a human being.
Right, and then the politics forced down your throat to comply to a different way. The lexicon being enforced through thought police of what you can say, even not your meaning of the words, but the word you can actually speak. The utterance of a vibration frequency and a sound is being constricted now for us to be able to even utter a vibration from your voice. Is being you're told what vibration you're able to exude from your being. That's it. That's where we're going into is ultimate control. That's really just sound frequency control.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to be here amongst...
Well, we're allowed to talk.
Yeah, we can talk here for the moment. Yeah.
It'll be loud in a minute.
Until the conference is over. Then it's going to get real loud. Stuart Wilde, a great philosopher, he said that people are becoming fringe dwellers. Like those who are kind of waking up are becoming fringe dwellers. This has really been LeakCon2019 has really been a pilgrimage of fringe dwellers. And it seems like I'm noticing every year there's more fringe dwellers, people who live in society but on the edge, and they're exploring this new territory. But the fringes keep getting bigger. I see the fringe getting bigger and more comfortable and more open to itself, less conflict. So it's a beautiful experience.
Now, if I could add in there, it's a global thing because where I just came from over in the UK, about an hour and a half northwest of London, it's the same thing happening. So Ian Crane, when they started the same symposium about 10 years ago, he said he had about 20 people, but now it's a very solid 300, and they sold everything out so quickly and they had to turn away people. They could have gotten about 1,000 into the room, but he's like, the economies of scale, it's just too much for 1,000 persons. But the fringe is everywhere, and it is growing, and their main concern in the EU or over in the UK would be 5G rollout, and the EU Integrated Defense Force, how they're trying to tie all the Europeans together under a unified command for military to go occupy North Africa. So those were the two things that the UK crowd was on. But see, that's the whole thing. It's the base of everybody being awake. Now, the issues on the top could change, but it's that base of being awake that seems to be where the fringe dwellers are kind of like, now it's becoming more mainstream to start questioning the narratives because we've been lied to for so long, and people realize they've been lied to for so long, and then they start to go, wait, what else is out there that I heard that was fictitious that might actually be true? So maybe there are a lot of people revisiting those little breadcrumbs that they put aside 20 years ago. Well, my two friends got mad at me when I brought it up.
Oh, yeah.
Never talk about that again at the workplace. Maybe they'll dust that off and bring it out and start exploring again. Yeah. A lot of changes, but everybody's becoming more awake, and I'm going to say that around the planet. Taiwan, for sure, Thailand, Myanmar, those people are becoming much more awake to what's happening. And then, everywhere citizens across the planet are banding together, they're noticing that things are strange in the way the government's behaving. And there's a huge global awakening happening every single place across this planet.
Yeah. Well, in the Adam and Eve story, if you read that beautiful nightmare, always read it before you go to bed. It's very, very important. Read it before
Good
bed.
Sleeping material.
Best time. And by the way, when you're reading it, I think a lot of the absolute catastrophe that he was writing about turned out to be possibly toned down a little bit. Suspicious Observers goes through the story and says it might not quite be that bad. But what's my train of thought on that one?
Or it might be worse. Before you go to bed, reading.
Oh, sleeping
Adam
reading.
And Eve.
Yeah, reading the Adam and Eve story. Well, with that, Eve knew. Eve knew the cataclysm was coming. Intuition knew the cataclysm was coming. So ultimately, if there is a GSM, Grand Solar Minimum, coming, hopefully not worse, but that does appear to be, the data shows that, then, well, Eve, our intuition knows. So it would make sense that at this time where we don't have any time left not to wake up, if your intuition is going to speak to you, this is it. This is kind of getting to that, like, those last moments where your intuition can wake up and you can start hearing it.
Yeah, because one thing I've noticed through both of the conferences that I've been to in the last, week and a half, massive changes are afoot everywhere, and it's all noticing. Everybody's noticing that there's massive changes, and I'll leave it at that. That's a commonality that every speaker across 2 different continents is saying the same thing. There's massive changes happening. They're happening now. We need to take a look at it. But that's kind of the base construct, is everybody understands something massive is happening at this moment on different levels, From the control grid of 5G into the media and everything else in between.
And that's the thing. There's going to be somewhere, make sure the thing doesn't go to sleep on us.
Structural changes in the sun, too. Electrical changes in the sun. A lot of these things affecting us humans as receptors, too, because if the sun's electrical state changes, obviously the Earth's crust and, the Earth itself being a differently charged body in space, it's going to have a different charge. Our bodies will behave differently with the equilibrium and the electrical charge between sky and Earth. Mm-hmm. Well, we're standing right in the middle of it, so we should be really heavily affected. Regardless of the mineral composition under your feet or whatever, it's either metal or maybe it's crystal, whatever, something electrically is vibrating through there. You're that middle conduit between up in the ionosphere connected back to the sun, and then here you are in the middle, and then you're going to the ground. Mm-hmm. So wearing bare feet is going to be even more highly charged these days.
I like it. Yeah. Well, we really are, each of us individually, we are our own scalar antenna.
Yes.
So we are. So we have to realize our cosmic reality, our cosmic responsibility, as Ice Age Farmer puts it, that you matter and that your vibration, you're a scalar antenna, you're creating this reality. So you have to, hopefully play a positive part in it. It's time. So whatever leads a person to, in whatever way somebody realizes something is not right and gets led to do something. Here at the conference, it's amazing. You could be a worm farmer. You could be a David DuByne speaking about the GSM.
And taking action, too. I'm not just talking. I'm really taking action, because I'm not going to tell you all this and then sit on my ass and eat potato chips. I'm building out systems to try to bring them indoor to grow food indoors. So along with the research, I'm trying to build stuff.
And that's something I wanted to ask you about.
Was get all defensive about that.
No. Yeah, we're all doing something. And when you look at the increased cosmic rays and you look at the Schumann resonance being affected, are you seeing people get a little crazy? Because it just seems like to me, as we go into a solar minimum, the 11-year cycle, like this one particularly, I'm just seeing people, evolutionary leaps, people's consciousness. I'm seeing people who are waking up to things that I never thought would. And I also see people who are really turning off. They're going like, nope, I'm checking out for this one.
Yeah.
Are you seeing
I'm seeing both. But more of the wake of people I never in a million years would have ever thought that I would hear those words come out of their mouth. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Like those kind of moments where you're like, that, what? All right, let's sit down and have a real conversation now.
Yeah.
Because before, when I would say the same things, it would be so dismissed or, walk out of the room or don't talk about it. People think you're weird if you talk about it. Into, those same people are now coming back going, you knew a lot about that. Why don't you tell me more about it?
Yeah.
That kind of thing going on, especially with previous, events leading up to this point in time.
Oh, yeah. Again, next thing, you see a neighbor painting their house, and that's a nice color, and you see it's a RF resistant paint, and you're like, that's RF resistant paint? And he's like, yeah, it's a 5G antenna down the street. And you're like, wow, I just thought you were a pain in the ass on the HOA board. I did not expect this from you. This is really cool. So,
yeah, because there's one thing that you just mentioned, the blocking signal. 5G has no blocking signal. There's no way to block it, except trees and wet leaves. Now, trees will block the signal to about 70%. Trees, big trees, nice trees. If you get the leaves wet, like a misty day or a dewy morning, it blocks the signal at 100%. So they're running around the UK cutting down over 4 million trees to install the 5G system. But at the same time, that's your only defense, because you can block the signal 100%. So if you had trees and you watered them with a sprinkler or some kind of mechanized system, you could create your own grid inside that would be totally unaffected and the full 5G signal would stop. Trees and wet leaves. Wet leaves are your only defense against 5G. It goes through everything. And the only thing that stops it and knocks it down is natural plant life. And that is really trippy, that they're trying to wipe out all the plant life to bring in this system that the only thing that can defend us from it is plant life. And so that's really, it's almost like terraforming, because they're going through all the major cities like Plymouth, Newcastle, York, and they just clear cut the city. Well, they were trying to, and it created such big protests that, you talk about move to action. They went down, it's the story, I'm going to tell you a quick story here. Mm-hmm. This is the story that started it and started the movement against 5G. Was they had this old neighborhood, over 100 years old, but these trees were over 100 years old. They made this, nice canopy over and it was English countryside, or not countryside home, but like English homes, really beautiful. If this was in New York City, it'd be a $1 million, district. These homes were stunning. People go to work in the morning, they come back, and all of the trees down the entire street were clear cut to about, 3 feet tall. But these were like 100-year-old oak trees.
Oh my gosh.
They clear cut them all the way down, and people absolutely were breaking down in tears when they came home, and they had just nervous breakdowns because the value of their property dropped significantly in a single day. Well, once they realized that they're installing 5G, and then it started to happen to the next street, and then the next street, well, word spread through the cities. Like if you see crews coming in, they didn't bring one tree cutting crew truck in; they brought like 6. And they had the big hooks and all kind of other support vehicles behind it. So when you see one of those rally at the end of your street, you would know that you're going to get clear cut. So the neighbors would come out, and they would be rough coming out. They weren't going to come out and just say, hey, guys, don't cut. They're coming out with stuff to stop them from cutting. Mm-hmm. It gotten so bad now that they bring the SWAT team in to accompany the tree cutting trucks. And it's being forced down the throats, where the citizens are literally trying to stop the tree cutting, but they're pushing through where they have to bring military police out to stop the citizens from stopping the clear cut in their cities. Mm-hmm. And the new eminent domain law, this was the kicker for me. I'm used to eminent domain in the United States. Like if they want to make a highway, you have to give them the land, right? If they're going to do some kind of construction that's going to help put an airport there, okay, you got eminent domain. You got to give up your land, you give the price. The new English eminent domain law is if you have a tree, and I don't care how old the tree is, if it's on your private property, and this is the whole thing about the private property rights. If you have a 100-year-old tree on your private property and it's blocking line of sight between the repeater stations, they legally cut it down. You have no rights anymore, no property rights. They come in, they cut your tree down in your own private thing because it blocks signal. Eminent domain on blocking signal vegetation now. People are really woken up in the UK how bad it's gotten, but it took that whole rift over into tumultuous, like clear cutting the cities. Like why are they clear cutting? And the thing about the railways too, the British Railway out there, they understood back in the late 1800s when they were burning coal that the ash was coming up, that if it planted trees next to the tracks, A, it would stop the ash from flying off into the fields, and B, and it would be cleaner, and then it helped churn the air. So if you go through the British Rail, the tracks when you get to the countryside, man, there's huge trees all along the place. Mm. They want trains to run on 5G, so they're going to deforest everything along every track across the UK. Every single tree is coming down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is an oh my gosh moment. They're going to cut 4 million trees. Now this is insanity. Just to install a system. And then I learned about the system and I was like, well, my God, they got a heavier carrier wave inside that they can tweak and it has effects on the body. And that's the whole reason I want to talk about it. Is because it's electrical disruption, these frequencies inside the 5G grid, to the point where they can use it to incapacitate protesters and people. And as this presentation unfurled, I was like, wow. Mark Steele was the one who gave that presentation. Mm. And then other speakers were also, Ian was totally about the 5G. And I've taken a whole new look at it, and I realize it's almost like terraforming to take us down against our protection against an alien force. You want to talk about alien force? Maybe it's an electronic essence that is not a physical. Because you said, would the aliens be like us? Would the foreign extraterrestrials, would they be like us? What if they're energetic bodies that need like a grid of electricity to exist in the physical space? This would be like a super hyper intelligent fourth dimensional being, but it can't exist in our third dimensional world as such unless we give it something to exist in. Like all the copper wiring on the planet, all the fiber optic cables, and perhaps this new 5G grid.
So it can actually truly be wireless finally.
Yeah, because something truly be wireless. It set itself free on our Earth by being that hyper intelligent that it used all the people to create businesses, to put whatever. But anyway.
I hear you. What gets me about 5G that I don't quite understand.
Well, you get faster internet. You can watch movies faster.
You do have faster internet.
But cut down 4 million trees so you can watch a faster movie. It makes sense.
Oh, well, yeah, it does. I mean, of course it does. But I guess what shocks me about it and I haven't studied 5G in depth, but to me, it seems like a weak protocol. I mean, I don't quite get the design of it. What gets me is it seems funny, just the design. It just seems like if you're constantly improving the wireless signal over a greater area. I just look at all through history.
It doesn't work like that, does it?
It's just because I like radio frequency. I mean, I've been an amateur radio person forever, and I've made radios out of an old vacuum tube and this and that and the crystal, and I enjoy such things. It just doesn't seem like in the evolution of RF, radio frequency, and transceivers, why you would make a 5G. I understand improving signals, but one that is so... For one thing, it's going to be expensive to implement because you got to make so many towers, and then you have to maintain that. And then every time a bush grows somewhere, it stops working. So it's...
And they'll come and cut the bush before they'll move the tower.
Until they cut the bush. But it just seems that, maybe they don't care about the environmental devastation, but it just doesn't seem effective, which makes me think there's more to it than meets the eye, because I just don't see why you would... 5G seems like, to me, on the surface, like crap.
Yeah, and also what was explained inside there is the rollout of the 5G is coinciding with the rollout of the LED streetlights, because they're anticipating on using the streetlights. It's its own encapsulated 5G riding on top of the streetlight with the LED blowing down. Now, the LED lighting problems, etc., with your eyes, that's one whole aspect of it on the blue range. But what they're finding is these things have antennae that stick out, and they're continually scanning. It's LiDAR and LiDAR radar inside these things. They're continually scanning because the end result is to try to link up everything with the Internet of Things. Mm-hmm. So to be able to do that, everything has to spin and be totally mapped out in a constant 1 or 2 second delay where they know the next thing is moved to. Smart houses, smart grids, all these things, smart meters. Yeah. But they're finding that the amount of electromagnetic radiation on this thing is ridiculous. And, the gigahertz frequency, they trick you to think it's 5G. That thing runs from like 2 to 40. And what they're finding is the ranges that they can incapacitate people with is up in the high 30s. But that's still built into the system. They might say it's 5G, but that's running the hertz frequency from 2G up to 40G. So think about that. The carrier frequency they're going to tweak, it can incapacitate you, or they've done some studies where they can make people so disoriented by interrupting the electrical firing in the brain synapses somewhere, and then whatever part that would be. Mm-hmm. You're so incapacitated that you can't even open a door because you're just that much in vertigo and nothing's connecting correct in the brain's firing signals back and forth for like your action. Mm-hmm. So that's another disruptor. The next one that they talked about too was a specific wave frequency to bring you to your knees and make you vomit. Like it had that much effect on your body.
Yes. And
another burning one. And I know they've used this one for crowd control, and you see it on top of the Humvees sometimes. It's kind of a really wide antenna one. Mm-hmm. But it's for the whole city at the same time. Same frequency. So they're using they're using a wave frequency to make you appear that you got nausea, you have vertigo. They're disrupting your electrical firing and connection in your own body's cells to the brain, yeah, they're disrupting that electrically. That's all that wave frequency is for, eh?
Yeah, and with enough...
That's what I learned.
Yeah, that's a lot. And all these talks will be available, and there'll be a link in the show notes. You'll be able to see these talks after the fact. You got to buy them, though. It's worth it. But yeah, it's when they actually make the sounds of the speaker and you put the sand on top.
And you can see that. What do they call it? Cymatics.
Cymatics, yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you think about it, a cancer cell has a cymatic signature. It is a frequency, it is a tone. And when you have that much range and that much power over such a large amount of area, I mean, wouldn't that just be a great way to make people sick? Of course. I mean,
if it's the right frequency, if it's the wrong frequency, or not the wrong, but if it's the inert frequency, nothing will happen to you. See, that's the thing. They can. Now it's almost like that one Star Wars episode, Star Trek episode. This is back with Kirk, back in the 60s. But they were on one planet, and the guy had like a rod, and if he didn't comply, he would just touch his skin. And he goes, "That's set for number 1, the hurting." And then he turned it up to a 3, and then he fell on his knees like, and they're like, that was a 3. That was only a 3. And it made me very much realize that that's the same thing. They can tweak that gigahertz frequency in the between antennas or whatever the grid might be, and get that same exact effect out of you, and take you to your knees.
And what a great way to
literally take you to your knees and make you vomit with a frequency. That's insane, where they could cover a whole city like that. So if you got food protesters, you got rioters because the food's too expensive, people can't get fed, maybe the store's out or not all the way out of food, but they don't have any money to buy the food, they're going to go get the food. But I have been saying since the beginning of my channel, 5-6 years ago, I could not figure out how they were going to control the population with so few police and so few military willing to fire on their own citizens. And not only that, just the sheer numbers. To control hundreds of millions of people, you can't use thousands. And I couldn't figure out how they were going to control the civil unrest as the food prices rose so much. But here we go. This is the solution. The 5G network, they're going to run frequency in there to try to control the unruly.
Yeah, I mean, what a great way to stop a
what a
food
bad way to
protest.
do it, but I mean, it is a great way if you're a controller. You have the perfect, absolute crowd control weapon.
Yeah.
And I am saying it's a weapon system. And 5G is weaponized. It's not just like happy, faster internet.
It can disperse a crowd very well. You know, it definitely could. Also, to me, I wonder if it can also program people, because
never thought about that.
So yes, you can cause pain. Oh, my ears are ringing. I'm burning. Whatever. I have to disperse. I can't be here anymore. You know. But what about just conditioning the mind? I mean, ultimately, the brain gets your synapses. There's frequencies. That resonance does have an effect on us, and it could either make you more easy to hypnotize, to program. I mean, if you're watching
TV does the same thing, right? It has that frequency in the TV of 30 that when you have a camera, you can see the lines running through. You can see it line.
So, but you can interlace different frequencies in that. So, I mean, ultimately, maybe all you need is 5G, but maybe 5G and TV with the frequencies that they can put in that encoded video. I mean, there's a lot that can be done there. So I'm afraid of the TV. I'll watch some Netflix and I'll watch like YouTube and such, but I'm actually afraid of it just because I used to work in video and audio encoding, and it's very easy. There could very easily be a well, of course we know there's programming.
Yeah, subliminals. Coca-Cola got busted doing that in the 60s or the 50s, right?
But there's a
national anthem that rolled on, and the character said, "Be good, trust the government."
Yeah,
that was like black and white something way back in the day, right?
And there's much more they can do now. So, but 5G, however they might articulate this into the brain, definitely, it does seem like everybody buys global warming, but nobody really knows why. But it's a cult, and people will hurt you if you don't agree. And I started thinking to myself, what's going on? Anyway, that possibility of 5G, could they just program? Could it just be like, we're going to actually, just like in the Matrix, right? You know, you got your jack in, I'm going to program it, I'm going to send down how to fly a helicopter, right? What if they can just say,
download that?
You know, hey, everybody this week, let's for fun, everyone knows how to fly a helicopter now. You know, what if they could just straight up, you know, put programs and program their brain with it? I mean, maybe it takes a month, but you could make somebody have a belief that was absolutely true to them. Even things like that makes people very easy to control. If they think what's going on is their fault, that the government's there to help them. I mean, just comply. I don't know. You could even just create fear. People are just so afraid that they become paralyzed. Anyway, I guess I have a lot of conjecture out there. But
well, you know, you think about vibration frequency when the monks do it, and they get into the 528 hertz, and they get in all these hertz frequencies that are a single syllable sound to create either complete calm in your brain. Open up your third eye. I mean, these vibrations are meant for a frequency to change your body physiologically, where you start to sense something different, or it turns off and it calms down. So what if there's a calming frequency and they could tweak that and everybody chills out for the whole day, like almost as if you had a few drinks, you know, and everybody in that whole section of the city is incredibly calm.
Yes.
Where in the other one they could turn pain or turn off, because it's going to be a grid, so they don't have to turn the whole city into a stop protesters type of thing. And they're going to be able, just like you do now, you got internet here, your cable goes down in this part of the city, not the whole city goes down. They're going to, and with the closest of they only travel about 1,000 feet. So the 5G grid's going to be, completely equally spaced, as if you're putting a bunch of pin dots equally spaced with a robot putting them in place for you. They're going to be a perfect grid, and they're going to sweep past each other. And they're going to have to install so many of these things. Again, the question is, why do you need so much equipment installed?
And who's paying for it?
You are.
I know we are, but
we are.
I guess we are, because to me it just seems like it doesn't make sense to do 5G, because
it makes no sense whatsoever.
Technology could have just been improved and
could have been
improved.
Yeah.
And it's now we're doing 5G, something which is just incredibly inefficient, phenomenally expensive, and it's being pushed as if it's a cult. I mean, So we shall see. 5G is interesting. I mean, and that's the nice thing about coming to LeakCon 2019. People talked about it in every conference that came up. There's nobody did not talk about 5G, even the effect of 5G on worms. A worm farmer.
And can I throw? The hypocrisy of this whole system going out is.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, they were complaining that Bitcoin miners were using too much electricity. We're drawing on the grid. We're going to make the world hotter. Bitcoin miners are so bad. And here they want to run something that's going to run like 15,000 times more electricity than a Bitcoin mining operation globally. Like the input into that electrical usage and the cooling systems. The cooling systems. So you're going to know it's a 5G tower. It's going to be incredibly tall, like 80, 90 feet just a vertical tower, because it needs to get line of sight down onto the other towers and then repeat those flats. So there's going to be smaller repeater towers, then you'll have that large central tower feeding, and it'll be like, it goes out like this. Those, if you look at the bottom, there's 3 boxes. 1 box is for the electronics, 2 boxes are for cooling. They're 2 independent cooling units because it's running such a high frequency that it gets so hot in there. If one of those cooling units was to break, or somehow that the unit was not, like some hose or something became disconnected where the unit was no longer cooling that tower, it would catch on fire by itself. But the amount of power going in just for the cooling systems on that thing. And these guys are griping about Bitcoin miners, and they want to put out something that's running thousands of times more input. They're going to use nearly every single kilowatt on this planet to run that system. It's not efficient to keep cooling towers going for everything every 1,000 feet.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think it's going to take to power that system? And the amount of power going into, it's almost like the Hydra and Collider. They got so much power going in. Like, what extra dimensional entity can jump into that power range? Because we're going way above anything off the human frequency. You're so far above anything human. You're actually going into interdimensional, like super godlike size, to put that much power into place and run it as fast. They're going into things that we had to make new words for because there's never been that much power in a single location on the whole planet ever. So you look in the Hydra and Collider, they're developing new words to explain how much power is in that one place. And the amount of power, this whole grid. So you're conserving all this, turn off your fucking light. Turn off your light. Excuse me.
Oh, it's fine.
You know what I mean? The hypocrisy of it all. And then they're going to try to sell it like it's, I don't know, we're in a la-la land here.
It could almost be a wonderful science fiction novel written several years ago where we created this 5G grid and it let demons in. That started to attack the Earth. Then we found some really cool way to kill them all at the end of the movie.
And everybody who didn't want to participate had to run to the trees.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And it split society because you had the city dwellers and the forest dwellers.
Yes. The city dwellers, they all liked the demons. And the forest people didn't. It's kind of...
Yeah, there's going to be a split. Because transhumanism, you knocked on it there, that download of instant information into your brain. Because I see as things rolling out, just 5G, but the way they're pushing towards, integration of actual literal hardware into your brain stem, or something like this for children, including you. The transhumanist movement, I do believe, is going to split us into 2 species. Because, like myself, I'm going to the forest to live with the Sasquatch out there, who might have been the second iteration that happened once before. They're living underground. They're living out in the forest. They're so afraid of humans that they run the other direction like 1,000 miles an hour uphill. To get away from us. That's how terrified they are of us. So what happened before instinctively their intuition turning on, understanding the threat assessment of us? They're living in the forest, living underground. They're outside of signal range, both above on satellites and from the tree blockage. So maybe they were running to the forest as well to escape what we're about to go through again. Maybe we're 2.0. Maybe we're 2.0 and the previous, what is considered, unknown species of whatever hominids in the forests. That was us before, and they also took off to the forest to escape. Maybe that's too far out there to think.
I would love to live with the Sasquatches, maybe, or at least see some, because having spent a lot of time in the woods, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and there's a certain belief you get in something when you've experienced it. And so I've definitely been around some Bigfoot. Oh my heavens, out in the woods.
Oh, have you seen them? Tracks or something? Well, I'm not making a joke either. There's a bipedal hominid that's just a non-identified species, or they identified it. And they won't. There's a silence range in there in the middle of it. Is it real or not? But there's so much forensic evidence now. In a court of law, you'd have been proven 100 times correct over. There's so much evidence.
And people who live in different parts of the country and world who experience them, they like to throw logs. They do all kinds of things. And so I've had some experiences with the Bigfoot out there, because being a hunter, I'm always out. Hunters go further out than people usually do.
Yeah.
You know, you're not exactly a hiker, you're a hunter. So you're out there, and you'll be walking, and I've had rocks thrown at me in the woods. And you can see, they're coming from over there. And so you go over there, like look around the tree and nothing there. And I've had things track me. I even have pictures of it where it would start like 100 yards out, come in like 75, come in like 25. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then but it's moving. It's moving instantly from a place like here to here to here without a sound. Through brush, forget it. You could never go, you know, this thing is like just, it translocates, just dink, dink, dink. And then I'm like, okay, maybe this is the end. And he was gone. And I have pictures of him. He's just getting closer and closer. So when you experience it, you go, yeah, you know, there's something.
But what about the frequency range? Because there's a lot of talk about these things have frequency. They're able to manipulate frequency really well to be able to scare you, because a lot of people get incredible fright when they get even close to these things, or they move incredibly fast, or they disappear within and out of visual range. You get a lot of this, what you're talking about.
We call it the feeling.
So there's something going on where they're masters at manipulating frequency.
Yeah, we call it feeling in like the other hunters I know and such out in the woods. We just call it the feeling, because when they are close, you are scared. And we just call it the feeling. I mean, your hairs go up in the back of your neck, and it's just terror. But you know what? It's odd. You just get used to it, and you tend not to want to look up, which you always do, because you tend to get a feeling.
It's like the horror movie. Don't split your fingers.
Yeah, don't split your fingers. You kind of think, you know, it's above me. I know it's somewhere. And then it will pass. Either it will come and go, or you'll move out of the area. But yeah, it's just called the feeling. And oh man, when you get it, yes, I could tell you. I believe, yes, the Bigfoot can just manipulate energy, and they can, I don't know what all they can do to you, but they can make you just unglued terror.
Now again, it's a frequency wave. So in the 5G carrier wave, if they found, and they can mimic that frequency,
you would not want
they can do the same thing. Again, they're interrupting electrical, it's electrical disruption in your physiology that creates effects, whatever that effect is, that can be gotten out of there. So that terror, the fear, there's so many, that's just a frequency to change.
And that's just one Bigfoot. And that's one scalar antenna, one biological scalar antenna.
Yeah, what about the size of New York City covered with 5G, how they could tweak that one, right? Like, you're thinking about Atlanta covered in 5G, how they could bend the frequency and what coverage they could get. Imagine if each one of those is like its own satellite receiver where they electrify each city. I mean, you're turning the whole planet into a receiver at that point, or a transceiver, whatever it be. Because if you get 5G in all those major cities across the planet and you fire them up to full frequency, imagine if the whole planet changes its frequency to 37 gigahertz or something. Every city, and it's all broadcasting out or having. They're changing the planet's physiology. It's truly interdimensional. It's beyond being planetary body at that point. You're actually manipulating the planet. So what kind of civilization is that?
Through
frequency.
Know. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess what we were going
full 5G rollout. You do it in every city, man. Can you imagine the combined effect of the vibration planet-wide would be?
All of a sudden, everybody's running from Bigfoot. Oh, my God.
They're here.
It's in Starbucks.
It's in Starbucks. It was waiting for coffee. I didn't even see it.
Oh, my gosh.
Something like that.
Something you spoke about is when we talk about truth destroys the world you used to live in. So it seems like people here aren't afraid of that because they've been through it a few times. And you mentioned kind of two, because we always like on Radiant Creators to get into the people, like how you became you. And you mentioned you kind of had two major shatterings of the truth the world you used to live in.
Yeah.
If you
and by the way, this is our second time we've had interviews together. First time, it was at least a 2.5 hour when I cut it into five, or it was full 4 pieces, and they were about 40 minutes each. Yeah. So it's a personal question now.
And you don't have to answer it.
No, that's what I was thinking. The first one I'm telling you was just at this last conference I went to at the AV10, or at the Alternative U10 at Ian R. Crane's thing that I visited in London, because I never put together the 5G thing on the crowd control, and I never put together the EU Integrated Defense Force going into North Africa to take what was formerly the Roman grain-growing belts on how they were going to get it. And then I already knew about the immigration, so once I knew that, I was just like, they're going to get the fighters out of there, so they're going to send them up to Europe for free. I just didn't understand that. I didn't even know the Integrated Force, EU Defense Force, was going to go down into the Northern African countries. I did not know that. Totally unaware. And I didn't know that Brexit also is not so much about Brexit with the economy and the loss of jobs. It's about they don't want to get stuck in the integrated EU defense force, because then Britain has to. There's no more branches. Well, there'll be no more branches of military. There'll be no army. There'll be no air force and no marines. They're just going to consolidate it into EU defense force, and then without the differentiation of any branches inside the military, then that is beholden over to the EU integrated defense force. Now they're all appointed. It's a pure dictatorship. Call it what it is, and then that person makes the ultimate decision what the entire United Defense Force interoperability, like the airplane has to work in this country and this arm has to work in that place and this repair part has to fit everywhere in every place across the EU. Interoperable, so no countries are making their own weapons anymore. It's all interoperable. That's the key word. But anyway, I didn't know how they were going to go down in and get that. So the whole 5G thing, and I mean, it added such a depth and dimension to my understanding of the grand solar minimum that I didn't know before. That was an aha moment back then last week. The way I looked at everything completely shifted on a dime in 100. It was an instant. I was kind of on Earth, and then suddenly I was way above at the moon, looking back at the Earth at that wider view. Within just the whole weekend, took me from on the planet's surface looking all the way back up 100 miles up now looking. That's how much wider out my range of seeing how all the interconnected pieces came together.
From space weather down.
Yeah, I had such a small view and just focused on the grand solar minimum. How tiny was that view? Not seeing the periphery collateral outside, but then I think if they went to that much trouble to get the grain grow zones of North Africa, including all the immigration going on and the integrated EU defense force and roping England into that and everything, just to get the grain growing zones in North Africa, what else is going on in all these other places where that is turning greener, where governments are positioning themselves across the planet? Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of strangeness going on, and these all areas are becoming greener.
Yes.
So wherever the most political posturing and chessboard and saber rattling is going on, there's massive changes in agriculture going on. Either they're going offline or they're coming online. So instead of looking at natural resources like oil and these kind of things, start to look for the food growing areas. Where are you going to grow food or where's not growing food? You already see it across the news. These are the greatest things happening in politics.
Yeah, and hopefully I can link to that in the show notes, the maps that show the during the last grand solar minimum where it got warm and where it got cold, because it's kind of the same pattern is to some extent repeating. So
yes.
So we can predict and
ish. That's an ish. Predict-ish.
Yeah. And then when you look at the world events that are going on, it starts to put it in a different context. And definitely you want to buy the LeakCon downloads after this so you can listen to David's talk, because definitely an amazing new take. It changes how we see the immigration. And also, I kind of extrapolated one thing from that. I thought, wow, what a bunch of inexpensive soldiers to send back to fight. Just my thought.
Yeah.
You got good fighters, maybe better than they have right now. Just, okay, now you're a citizen. Here's your rifle. Go that way.
They go back and shoot on their own citizens. Like, say an Algerian is up in Germany and they give that Algerian a rifle. Is he going to go back and shoot at other Algerians?
They'll just divide it up.
Yeah. And that's what the EU Integrated Defense Force is about, because what's happening in France at the moment, one of the leaders of the Yellow Vests came to join our conference, and she was saying that the police that are in right now in Paris and other larger demonstration areas, they're all wearing EU insignia. None of them are French soldiers. None of them are French police. They're using outside forces from whatever. They describe them as East European. They cover their faces with black, and they go in pipe hitting, live round shooting, get that job done that you won't do with your own citizens. And this is the whole change, is the EU, other countries are coming to enforce on other countries that within the EU. So a lot of people, the reason that they were so heavily involved in the EU Defense Force and explaining what it was is because it's not going to be to invade North Africa exclusively. It's going to be to turn on their own citizens, and it's going to be used within the EU to control the breakaway states. Mm-hmm. Nothing more. And this is the whole thing about why they were trying to explain how it's coming about and why there's such a fervent push. And again, please understand, all the dates keep matching up. 2023, they need by law to have the 5G grid rolled out by 2023. No later. It has to be operable by 2023. Take a look at the new highway system for the rapid response force for whatever it might be in the EU. That has to be completed by 2023. The interoperability and the full integrated EU Defense Force needs to be fully operational by 2023. So what is it in Europe and across that area, that 2023, and it matches exactly with my super first heaviest crop loss across the planet. Mm-hmm. I really believe 2023 and 24, that year of crop harvest, are going to be the waking, defining, crack the camel's back. We are in a new territory year because they're going to understand for the previous years that they keep hearing in the background, crops are being lost, crops are being lost. Okay, I kind of understand it now, but it couldn't get too bad until we get into 2023 and 4, where we lose so much that it takes us below the carryover stocks. We got nothing in the silos, and people are going to start vying for food for serious. This is the year that it's going to start, in my opinion. But why is it that everything else across Europe needs to be integrated and fully functional by 2023? So that was another part of the piece of the puzzle that I wouldn't have got. So talking about the EU integrated defense force and all these things, but then when they put the dates on it, that was the home run for me. Because talking about an EU force going down to take North Africa, whatever, that okay. But put the dates on it, exactly why it has to be, then it all needs to be revolving around the same set of circumstances that they're also preparing for. So that gave me the secondary confirmation, tertiary confirmation of governments knowing what's happening and positioning themselves for continuity of government in the future. And that's just another example. America's doing it, China's doing it, the whole EU's up on it. So obviously most people know.
Yeah, except
Truly.
Except the citizens.
The citizens.
The citizens, yeah, they don't know.
Not
yeah.
But they will.
Many. Yeah, it's just better to know now. Come to
really.
LeakCon 2020. It's going to be an important one.
We'll give you a bag of rice if you come because it's going to be double price by that point.
because we're going to buy the rice now for 2020.
Right. It'll be a gift, and you'll be like, "Damn, I got rice."
Your little gift bag when you arrive will be more than will be worth
food.
More than your tickets to get.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry about it. Well, and then there was one other big shattering of the truth. If you want to go into that,
when I traveled in India. Because again, I got to realize I grew up in the States, and the education system that pushed me through high school, university was always, World Bank's there to help, United States is there to help, we're the ones leading the world, this, that, and the other. Whatever the indoctrination is that you learn in the United States growing up in the educational system. We're here to help, we're helping. Everything that we support helps all these other poor countries get not poor, and it should be throw the money, we need the taxes, we're going to help develop this country. And you keep hearing about development and all these things going on. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Had no other outside influence at all. But then I landed in India, in Calcutta, of all places. Early on. It was like 1994. Calcutta. And the instant I got there, it took about 15 seconds for me to break down and understood everything within 15 seconds. Maybe 30. Maybe 30 after I got out of the taxi downtown. 15 to 30 seconds. And I walked through it, and I realized everything I had learned at that point was a lie. And everything I had been told, it shattered in a second. Like I realized almost everything except breathing, perhaps, or drinking water, everything else was kind of fake. And I was like, wait a second. They brainwashed not only myself like that and indoctrinated us to believe a certain belief system, but they did everybody else too. So I was like, there's 300 million people that think the same I am. 250 million at that time was less. But still, it took me years to kind of, put all the pieces together. All right, so everything's a lie. Well, at least a lot of what I learned on the finance side, the help side, the government side, the military side, the economy side, and everything, the donation side, NGO side, charity work side, everything was fake. Completely fictitious, made-up narrative that you're supposed to believe on how it worked and operated and helped people's lives get better. Well, what I saw in India was the most horrific conditions I'd ever seen a human live in. People living in garbage dumps. Like they had... Okay, so a city block that wasn't being built, somebody started throwing trash in there, and eventually they got about 10, 15 feet deep on the trash. It was nearly over the top of the brick walls, like solid, just one solid thing of bags and whatever else on top of there. They didn't even use bags. It was like trash just thrown in there. People dug out and were living in it. Oh, my God. I can't remember. That was a defining moment, too. And the second thing, I got up. I was super jet lagged, so when I got there, it was a shocking moment. I was so, shocked in my brain, and as I walked around, I was still up in the morning, so people started moving around early in the morning. And what they came through is people that were still sleeping on the street, they banged them with it was a chrome or something like this on a ball, and they came and they hit the people. It was on the end of a wood stick, right? Mm-hmm. And they came and hit people, knock them up, and if you didn't get up, they took you away. And I was thinking, are they collecting the dead people that just died on the streets that night? Mm-hmm. I didn't learn about that. I thought all the money was going to help people, and we were trying to develop the economies, and I'll never forget these kind of moments that I had that shattered my... But then, the rebuilding of trying to figure out, all right, what was fake, what was real, what's the real thing, okay, what's behind it? And then you start to get to meet a whole new group of people. Mm-hmm. And then those answers go, oh, that makes more sense than what I was told before.
Yeah.
And I didn't know so much about how the banking system revolves, but I'm glad I learned that, because now I see what's going to happen with the economy and the rising food prices from the grand solar minimum. So how that's going to be controlled and go back to sound money again, and how other mediums of exchange like cryptocurrency are going to come to take up the fiat collapses. So, some people might go, oh, you had a traumatic, you had like a life-shattering experience going to India. Well, yeah, but then it got me all this knowledge where I can acquire and use it at this point. So maybe perhaps that fracturing of, what was reality at that point through the university system, through all the way in the United States after graduation. Even at the university level, you thought they would have had more discussions. We learned about the Vietnam War and the horrible stuff we did there. But beyond that, that's all we really learned about in depth in Asia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
we never rarely talked about India. It's just a bunch of guys I used to work with drove magic buses from like Paris all the way through Afghanistan, Pakistan. This is way back in the early 60s before it was dangerous. Everybody, hippie bus, magic bus. They drove from Paris over to like Istanbul, through there, and then they'd come down to Afghanistan or over into India, drove all the way to India, yeah? And these stories these guys were telling me make me want to go to India because it was so exotic, right? So I kept hearing all these, but I went by myself, and when I landed in Calcutta, oh my God, you have no idea how poor it was and how just smoke, people cooking, just smoke, oil coming out of place, people sleeping on the streets, full. And here's another thing. When they set up on the streets there the next day, I got towards sunset, and I was just, I'd walked around the whole day going, what the fuck? It's like, wow. I was just snapping a lot of photos, trying to do it. That night, the streets turned into actual cities outside in the street. Like all these people at night, when they came back, they didn't go home. They set up their tents on the streets with full families. And it wasn't like one, but the way it's not really like the American style where you have a tent and you live on the street. No, it's not like that. They have these poles and they come out and they make the tarp so it's actually like an extension awning off of the main building where they cover the sidewalk, and that's where they're at. It was on all streets. The whole way, everywhere. The whole streets were just covered in awnings of people living. And it wasn't like a homeless guy that's a drug user or something. It was full families living on the street. Families. Women, grandmothers cooking, all kind of stuff. Just people homeless all over the streets, like families together. And I thought, wow. Where did the money go? I thought we were supposed to be helping these people.
It's like the truth destroys the world you used to live in, but it offers you a better one. But you have to go through this
you got to go through and find the answers. So those people I started talking with and moving around with, new circles. It made a lot of sense, But then you go to the other side where you're like, you want to learn so much about what the false reality was that you can't deal with the people that are back stuck in the false reality because they hear you talk about that being a false reality, and instantly they're like, no more conversation.
You become a fringe dweller, and you have to come to
comes back to full circle again, doesn't it?
Conferences like LeakCon2019 and 2020, where you can finally hang out with a bunch of fringe dwellers. But you notice that, wow, all these people have been through the same experience. The world they used to live in, the truth they used to believe, shattered.
And like yours, what's your defining moment of shattered belief? You sure probably have
wow. Well, I think that it might expand over a little bit of time, but ultimately it came down to, when I was a youngster, I joined the military when I was 17. I don't endorse such things now. Kids, don't. Be a waiter. Just do something else. But I joined the military when I was a youngster, and I thought, wow, you get to be I'm not giving the military a hard time. Very proud to have been in the military. You guys are badasses. You guys are badasses. It's all good. But it's just that I thought, wow, you get to be a warrior, you get to be a soldier. There's something beautiful about being a soldier. You think I'm going to become this, this something of valor. And, well, I would just say your results may vary. It's not what you think. And so I kind of was like let down. I went, oh, wow, that belief I had that this was this great elite thing, nah, it wasn't, And then I went through a good number of experiences there, but I think what really was my defining moment went to Somalia. And I was there right at the end of Black Hawk Down, that movie, which is very authentic. Right at the end, that's when we showed up. And the road, you see the guys running down at the end of Black Hawk Down, if you watch the movie, over that little tent was, that's where our base was. And we were there for 4 months, and I saw pretty much humanity after the cataclysm. And I've always felt like one of the reasons why I'm involved in this is I feel like there was some reason I saw that. Because there I was, and it was not really a first world country in the first place, but through the Civil War and then through us showing up, it had become Stone Age overnight. And I got to see what happens when a modern society becomes Stone Age. And I watched, and I can say that it would take way too much to get into in this interview, but I learned a lot.
If you want to know more, you should listen to our interview because we talked about this in depth. Adapt 2030 channel, part 1 through 4. We had a 4-part series between he and I doing the interview, and talked about that whole experience, about what you'd seen in the Moog, and also what I read and gleaned out of that Year in Hell book for the Bosnian War siege. Like, what were the most valuable items to trade? And we talked about that at length.
We did.
Like, what was the most valuable stuff in these siege situations, or collapse into Stone Age, or just blockades of cities?
Yeah.
Watch the interview, Adapt 2030.
Oh, definitely watch it. And so many of these things are so easy, and they're so cheap now. Like the value that a box of those little Neosporin packages, oh my gosh, it'd be worth more than ammo. And
yeah, it was, because medicine, that was, we talked about medicine was like the number one thing, ammo second.
Ammo second, Wow. So we're almost at an hour here. This has been amazing. I'd like to just mention before I let you go.
Yeah, we're going to wait for the sound to come, because the next session is going to be over, and there'll be about 150 people flooding out of here. So why don't we let the people be our end? As soon as the people flood out, we're off. Then we'll say, so we'll give you an advance warning that we'll be done, and we'll just sign off quick, but we'll wait for the...
So we're signing off now, but not yet.
Sort of.
Yeah, so I got into Game of Thrones. Now, I haven't really watched much of the series, but it's just so popular, I've had a bit of an interest. Like, what is this all about? And I learned something about it that I had no idea. And you can find this on YouTube. I'll put a link in the show notes. But I saw some descriptions. I had no idea. Some people did some YouTubes about the history before. And I didn't know this, but Game of Thrones takes place 12,000 years after a cataclysm during the beginning of the Grand Solar Minimum. That's why winter is coming. Is that not...
predictive programming?
Whoa! I saw that and I went, are you serious?
Yeah, because think about how many people would have picked up on the message, the subliminal message contained within the most popular program ever on the history of TV. Now, how is it that... is this being pushed to create the most popular system so everybody gets the message and you all have a chance to actuate or activate or get call to action on that message? Because everybody on the planet's heard of it. Everybody on the planet pretty much has seen it, at least one of those shows. So how has it become such a gigantically... it's a great show, by the way, but a gigantic success that it pervades the entire planet with the same message about the cold's coming.
Winter is coming.
You're going to have difficulty. See how they fight for food. See how rudimentary it was. People took a step back into like a primitive lifestyle. Like they're preparing you for... so it won't be so bad if you have to live like that. You'll be like, oh, it's kind of like living in Game of Thrones on the... we have some pigs over here. We got a central courtyard over there. But that might not be too bad. Yeah. They're trying to pre-sell you that it might not be too bad. Well, you know what? It is going to be pretty bad if you don't have an aerial motor to pump your own water from the ground.
And that's something I wanted to talk about. I mean, to the extent that you are able and that you want to at this point, you are coming out with some new devices. Self-contained little farms in your house. Is that something that you're working on right now?
Working actively on it, yeah. So the power part is it's the most difficult part, because Brad Buttrick, he has the all-in-one Spectrum LED grow light. That's done. Lush Hydroponics out of Taiwan, they got the vertical grow tubes. So the actual real hardware for growing and is there for you already. It's easy. You can just order it and they'll get it to you. The hard part is, like with Bitcoin mining or with any kind of mining, the electrical cost and also the reliability of electricity. Because if your electricity goes out and your food's going to die, you'll die. And if it comes to that point where you want to have control over your own electricity, it's just developing what previously was a Tesla device, and it's turned now into what they call a parent-dev motor, where it's using magnets. And the push of magnets, when you're a kid, you try to push them together and they repel each other. Well, you stack them up in a circular fashion, and you put a spindle in the middle that comes in and out to stop if you pull it out, the magnetic coupling will break. Mm-hmm. And when you push it in, you got to start it by hand first to make it spin. But once it starts spinning, then you can drive an alternator and then charge a battery from that using the Earth's magnetic field. Now, these devices have been around for a super long time, but I just found kind of a new niche for it. Not a thing to power your home, but something a small one to power just the battery that would have enough to drive the lights on your grow system, circulate the water, have a fan and maybe a dehumidifier running, like a 1 kilowatt unit, something like that. And you could have your batteries charged, and then if you had extra, you could overflow it somewhere else for more usage or sharing, if you will.
Wow. 1 kilowatt's not bad.
No, not bad. That's enough to do everything. You got all those lights on however many tubes you're going to put out, because we're working with an 8-tube system and a 16-tube. And the next thing is when we get the rest of the lights from Brad Buttrick at Hidden Harvest, we're going to line that thing up on the wall. And then we've been working with the magnetic motor. It's going to be a free idea design out there so you can couple the system yourself. I have no intention of manufacturing it. I do have the intention of building one to show it can be done, use it for my home use myself, but I have no intention of manufacturing these. The designs I'll put out there. But yeah, in terms of selling this, I'm not into it. It's a kit. It could work if you can do it yourself, a DIY, but here's all the stuff that I'm trying to think about in the future, because our grid definitely is going to go down. Electrical, we know pretty much now when you flick it, it goes. The reliability issues in the future are great with the electrical usage. So if you can create your own electricity, gravitational vortex power, 1 cubic meter flow, spinning some turbines, just spin the water and then let it drop out. You can stack those down on a stream or a river. There's all these solutions locally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an exciting project. I look forward to seeing those YouTubes.
But again, I'm not going to sell it or manufacture it. It is just a design.
Gotcha. It's just a design.
Just a design.
Yeah. Do it yourself if you want.
Yeah, DIY. That's exactly what it is. DIY. Now you can take a component out of that. Maybe you just want to use the grow tubes. Awesome. Well, it'll be there so you can learn how to use the grow tubes. Shit, you could even pour that by hand if you had a clock, and every 3 hours you'd have to rewater it, and then you could collect the water at the bottom. So it's using gravity for the drip feed through the tube system. So if pinch comes to pinch, you could water by hand.
Definitely. And that's when maybe we'll sign off really soon, because I think that everybody actually stayed in the same rooms they were in for the conferences. I kind of expected the herd to go by, but actually I think everyone stayed in the same room. I was kind of expecting that to be our little...
Well, you think there'd be a break here, 421, yeah.
Yeah, because
everything it's rolling over a little bit later.
Gotcha.
And I once said, Ian Crane did a great job keeping the time. Like at the alternative view, it was on time to the minute. I mean, to the second. All right, you're done. Yeah, next 15-minute break, you'll be back. Next one, right on the minute. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super happy. After 2 days, it's only running 10 minutes late or 15 minutes late after 2 days of sessions.
Oh, these sessions have been intense. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty good.
It's been amazing. So, maybe we'll...
What was your favorite thing you saw here so far today? Because I was asking a lot of people this question. So far we've gotten a lot of information.
Yeah, favorite thing I saw while I was here.
Yeah, for you.
I think... I really love the charisma of the worm farmer, Greg.
Yeah, Greg Allison.
Greg Allison, amazing presentation, NASA scientist, and he's doing a presentation about worms and growing worms and the importance of, hey, if you're going to be farming, if you're going to be growing, you need fertilizer, you need good soil, and you're not going to be able to go get fertilizer. But basically, you can do what we've done forever. You can just use cat litter boxes, plastic cat litter bins, and you can just grow in your closet or your garage. You can have tons and tons of worms. I mean, there's a barter item right there. I mean, everyone's going to need some worm castings and such. And so I loved his resourcefulness and just the guy in general. He looks like Gandalf.
Yeah.
And I think he's a modern day
He's super fun. He's a great speaker. He got a really good way to speak.
Yeah, great guy. I loved your presentation. So much data. Thanks for listening to Radiant Creators. Check out more content at radiantcreators.com. If you like the show, give it a like. Share this. Comment. Keep the conversation going. You can also find us at alternatecurrentradio.com, where there's this show and a lot more.